Hello, true believer. Today we're going to go through how to build your own working drawing based off the bridge that you've built in the previous exercise. So we've got our bridge here that we've made as an assembly file, and now we're just going to create our own working drawing. So if we go up here to the new file, and we want to create a new working drawing from the AMSI in millimeters, which will look something like this. So you'll have all your parts down here, the type and all that sort of stuff, and then we'll draw the measurements that are relevant and add some balloons as we go. So this is basically what we'll start with. Now this is where it's slightly different from what normally you would do in Inventor. So normally you will go base view and just place in directly the original document that you would have had, which would have been up here in the original file. So in Warren Bridge it would have just been that. Now when you do that, it will actually affect the part files as you later go down the track. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a hack to get around that. So what happens is with my file, it'll make a folder with all the things inside of it. And basically you'll open that and it'll have all the frames that you need. And then the very top, there's an assembly file, which is like the raw assembly file of all the parts. So we actually need to add that as the base model. And we'll have the different views and all that sort of stuff come from it. So from here, we're going to call that the front view. And we're going to enable it by pressing the little light bulb. And then we're just going to edit it so that we get rid of the scale view down the bottom here. So just delete that. Otherwise it puts in the scale each time, which we already know is going to be at a half. And it should be already listed somewhere down here. So we'll go OK. And then OK. So there's our front view done. We're now going to project from that. So we're going to click on the view. And as we click, basically it will place a projected view all in alignment with it, no matter where you sort of move this around. So we want to do the front, probably the side, and then we want a nice isometric view so we can get a clear image of what we're going to build. Something like that. Awesome. And you right click and then go create, and that will create it of it. Now you notice that this is the only one that's been labeled, so let's just go around to each of these views and label it properly. So right click, go edit view, and we're going to go, this is the top view. We'll enable that, and then we'll delete the scale, because we don't need to see that each time. And OK. And this is the side view, so we're going to go right click, edit view, and we'll go side view. We'll put the light bulb on, and again we'll delete that, and then lastly we'll come up here. Then OK, and then last one we'll go up here, edit view, and we'll go isometric view. We'll put the light bulb on, edit, delete, then OK, and then OK. Oh, also with this one, because it's the isometric view, we want to make it look a bit more solid. So this is the hidden lines been sort of put in place. And we want to make it the shaded solid view so it gets a real nice image of sort of what our BALSA bridge is going to look like. So we go OK. And that just makes it look a little bit more sort of professional. And you can see all the members coming together with all those notching that we did before. Right, so now we've done that with all the different views. And we've got down here the scale and all the measurements and all that sort of stuff. We can come back up here and we're going to put the dimensions in. So now we're going to put a little bit of annotation. Now with the dimensions, we need to put anything that's sort of relevant to when we're building this, because this is the whole point. We want to make sure it's easier for us to look at this working drawing and sort of put together what needs to be done. So for this, I would first of all get the main measurements of how wide the whole thing is. So maybe something like this, and let's put that up as high as possible, and then OK. Then probably how wide this top part is. It's probably going to be pretty important. And then you might want to have where any of these critical points where they've been joined. So you might want to go from here and then measure across there. And similarly here to here. And then also maybe the intersection point down the bottom. Now notice whenever I'm doing this, I'm not actually, oh hang on, let's undo that. That's not looking so sharp. Go again from the dimensions from there to there. And this time we'll go from the dimensions from there to the tip. There we go, that's better. That looks a little sharper. And then same on this side. Awesome. And then we can also do like that. And then also probably want to get that center point there as well. So let's go down there. Just so we've got a rough estimate of where anything that's sort of critical is going to happen. And again, it's just roughly so that you just know as you're building, these are the things that are important. Probably also need to know how high the thing is. So that's probably going to be useful over here. And there's not many other sort of vertical things that are really that important. So that's what we'll do on the top, the front view. And then come up to the top view and do something similar. Let's just move up here. And we'll go through that same sort of process. So we'll go there and right up to the top. And what we'll do is we'll measure off how far each time it is to sort of get a good estimate between each one of these bracing points along the ridge. And then we'd also probably want to know how wide the whole bridge is. So we'll go there, there. So, and we'll go down this way. Oh, let's get rid of that. Okay, and then we'll now do that last bit as well on this side. So probably want to put the dimensions like that. And then we might do the inside. So we've got that clearly sort of labelled. And then also how high our little guy's going to be. Something like that. Now this is a bit of an art. You might want to sort of play around these measurements so that it looks a little bit better. But those are sort of the main ones that I could see that were important when putting this together. So I can see exactly where I need to place them. Now notice that I can only ever put the dimensions either to the left, above, and you can also put to the right of here, but I've left that gap. You need to sort of play around with that to basically make sure that you can see all those measurements. You can never put the dimensions underneath the view. The simple reason is because you've got the view name underneath, so that's a big no-no. And also just try and make sure it looks sort of balanced out what you've done. So now that I've got those measurements there, I might also move this up a bit more, just to give a bit more sort of breathing room around the area. Okay, so then the next bit that we're going to do is we're going to look at the parts list. Now the parts lists allows you to have sort of a template of all the things that you need to have when you're building your final model. Okay, so if we go to parts list, same thing, you'll need to click on the frame. So inside that little hack that I showed you. So not just the normal file, go inside wire and bridge, frame, frame, and then okay. So when we place that, we usually place it in the top right and bottom left. Because we've got the isometric, we're going to try and put that in the bottom right, just like that. Sorry, bottom right or top right. Now if we zoom in on it, you'll see that it has the item number, so what type of member is going to be used. That gives you the total quantity, so how much of that member that you need, the part number, and the description. Now there's a lot more sort of more useful things that we can get into that will help us for when we're actually building. So if we double click on that, it brings up the tables that we're sort of dealing with, and we're going to sort of modify this. So on the top here we can choose the column. Part numbers are probably not so useful, so we'll just remove that, and we're going to add in a few other things. So probably worth taking a screenshot of this and making sure that you do something similar to this. So the first step is the item quantity. So that tells you how many of the actual particular cuts that you need. So we're going to have that. So item quantity, and then we're going to have the base quantity. So that's actually the measurement of just one of the units. So item quantity, base quantity, then the total amount of that measurement. So that's basically those two times together. And then this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. We're going to put the standard in that we had before. Description, and then we're going to put the stock number in as well. Now, this will make more sense when you see basically what all those different values are. And then we'll go OK. So what happens now is we've got the item, which we can move back in a bit. We've got the item quantity. Oh, we don't want the base unit. We don't actually want the base quantity, sorry. Let's get rid of that. Base quantity, sorry, small little clicks. And then we'll go OK. So we've got the item quantity, base quantity, which is the measurement of one of those particular units. The quantity, which tells us how long that total would be if we basically times those two together. And then what we've got here is the library type, the description of what it is, and then the measurement that we chose. So this was the 6 millimeters. This is going to be useful if you change your different materials. So for example, if you make, instead of it just being a square, you might want to have a rectangle that's 6 by 3 because you cut your balsa in half to lower the materials that you're going to use. So that might be useful when you're sort of setting up these descriptions as you sort of change those materials. Now we can actually set this to make it look a little bit sort of neater. So we're going to just set that. Item quantity is fine. Base quantity, yeah, that's reasonable, so we can know that. The quantity itself, so let's just bring that out a bit so it sort of fits in a bit better. The standard, let's just change that. And instead of that, let's call it the library. Just go lib, just to save a bit more space, because we don't really need all that. And instead of description, let's change that to type, and we'll center that. And let's, instead of go to stock, we'll go dim for dimensions, and we'll center that as well, just to make it look a little bit sort of neater. So now we've got the item quantity, the base quantity of that there. Instead of quantity, let's change that. Let's go total QTY. So that gives you the total quantity. So base quantity for measured quantity. Yeah, that looks better. And we'll just give it a bit more space there. And bring that back in. Awesome. So let's see what happens now if we apply that and go OK. So now we've got those measurements there. Looks a little bit sort of neater. And we can sort of drag that back just to be in line. And we can drag that back. It didn't look like it formatted that one. Sorry, we'll go back here, format columns, and we'll center that guy as well. Okay, might as well do the changing in here. So to bring that back, bring that back, bring that library right back. Total quantity, base item, item quantity, and then item. Awesome. So now that we've got that, we can put that in the corner and line it up. Fantastic. So there's the measurements. Now, here comes the cool part. Because each one of those is labeled as a particular number, we've actually got a balloon method that we can use now. So what the balloon method allows you to do is you can go through balloon, and it will literally put a number attached to each one of those members. So if we go balloon, just to give you a real quick example, and we click there, and then we go continue, puts a 1. So we know that that is, it needs to be a type of part 1, which is a measurement of 270 in general. So you'll just have that part measured out of 270, and then you can obviously play around with the notching and all that sort of stuff as you go. Okay, so just to fix that up properly, let's just do it properly. If we go back, and as general, we try to make this look as neat as possible. So one way of doing it, which I found which is kind of cool, is basically click outside, and then move to the right. That's why I gave a lot of space on this side. And see how I've kept a diagonal and then a straight line out. So then it's very clear what that particular member is. So then we'll come down here. We'll do the same sort of thing. We'll come out to a line. Then we'll make sure it's all sort of lined up and kosher. There we go. And we're going to continue. So that's a part 2. And then we'll go over here as well. And actually, let's instead of doing that, press B for shortcut for balloon, and let's just put it out here. And this is where it's sort of a little bit finicky, but it's worth it. By putting those straight lines out, really sort of identifies what the balloons are. Whoops, I stuffed that one up. Let's go again. So there, and then try and get as straight as possible. And then back a little bit up. Of course, did that. Let's go again. There we go. Awesome. So they're all part 1. We'll come here. We'll keep with that sort of theme. That's a part 3. And then we'll put a couple on this side as well. So again. And that one there. There we go. Awesome. So then we can do exactly the same over here for the side view. So just going to go over this way. There. There. See how it all sort of aligns it for you. And then we'll go out here just so that we got some sort of consistency. That's all those parts. And then we'll go back up here. And then it's probably not worth doing those side panels, because that's exactly the same as what's down here, and we've already sort of put those on and it'll get a little bit overwhelming. So that's all the ballooning, dimensioning. Go back and deselect. Probably we can move that a little bit more in the center, like so. And there we go. So there's our final sort of product of our working drawing. Gives you a very clear indication of all the different parts and how to put it all together. And then down the bottom here, it's also got all the base units with all the different measurements, also when it was made, which is a very good indication of how far ahead you are with your assignment. Awesome. So you'll need to be able to produce one of these and print it off. And I look forward to seeing your working drawings of your final prototype before you build. Thank you very much.